I'm assuming I'm going to want to watch it again. So, Roger, are you there, my friend?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Video working or no? Or
it is. Yeah. I'm about to get it going.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to go ahead and give him just a little bit of an introduction here. A couple neat things about Roger Rodriguez. He is in the Cutco Hall of Fame. He got married about 4 years ago, I believe, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. So his wife actually also works for Cutco. They are a Cutco power couple, and both of them are in the Cutco Hall of Fame, which is pretty amazing. Let me go ahead and make sure we got you spotlighted, sir. He has completed 2 half Ironmans. He has won a Rolex from Cutco Cutlery. And a couple of less known facts about Roger. One time, Roger threw a grenade and it killed 50 people. And then it exploded. Another cool thing is Roger actually learned how to make fire by rubbing 2 ice cubes together. It's pretty impressive. He has actually set ants on fire with a magnifying glass at night. He actually knows all of the last 4 digits to pi. And something really neat about him is when ghosts go camping and sit around the campfire, they tell stories of Roger Rodriguez. Want to thank you so much for your time, and welcome you to the San Marvelous District team meeting. We're absolutely honored that you get a chance to spend a little bit of time with us and share the goods. Thank you so much, sir, and we appreciate you making it, man.
For sure. So thank you for having me. I mean, today this is great that I'm talking about mental toughness today, simply because today I actually worked an event and had a 0 day. And if you've ever worked an event or you've ever worked a day and you sell $0, well, it sucks, right? And you tend to get in your head, and then you get frustrated, especially when it's like, man, I know I could be selling a lot more if I was somewhere else, blah, 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 blah. And then your mind starts just telling yourself all these stories. And I was like, I could get home and just chill and, drink a LaCroix, maybe watch some TV and, get ready for the talk. Or I could just go to the gym and get after it so that I can make sure that I stay in alignment with what I teach, what I preach, and, life in general. So one of the things that I want to talk to you guys when it comes to mental toughness is that it's a muscle that you essentially work. Similar to like you go to the gym, you work on certain parts of your body, or if you go running, you're working your legs, you're working your heart. Mental toughness is not something that you just like develop incredibly overnight. This is something that you actually work on every single day of your life, whether you work here, whether you're a mom, a dad, you're a son, a brother, a sister, whatever. Like mental toughness is something that you actually work on every single day of your life. And why is it important? Because I was actually I was listening to a book called $1 Million Habits. And one of the things that he talked about is that problems are just a part of life. Problems will always be there in your life, always. Some big, some small, some incredibly big, and some just very minute. And the goal of mental toughness is recognizing when those problems are in front of you and not letting them essentially get to you to the point to where you just break down, to where you can't handle it anymore. Just acknowledge what's going on, right? So here's a nugget for you. If you're going through a problem, a situation, something that you don't like, and you're like, and you can feel yourself, and this is what having high EQ is, having high emotional intelligence. You can start to feel yourself getting upset or getting angry. Try to take a step back and talk to yourself. How do you do that? You say, say it in your brain or say it out loud, go to the mirror. Be like, I feel myself getting angry. And I think the reason I feel myself getting angry was because I was supposed to sell some Cutco today and I didn't sell anything. So I feel like I wasted my day. And just by verbalizing these things, well, now you're like, wow, okay, well, that's actually what I'm feeling. You almost kind of become like your own therapist, right? And by verbalizing and speaking these things out, rather than just being emotionally tied up in those things, you actually now have a way to essentially converse with yourself to say, okay, Roger, well, yes, you did sell zero, but how can we end the day on a win? How can we end the day on a win? And I would encourage you to ask yourself that whenever you're in a situation. Okay, well, what's going on? How do I feel? Why do I feel this way? Okay, well, that's the situation. How could I end this on a win? And just get after it, right? The thing is, there's a lot of factors in life that you can influence, and there's a lot that you can. And one of the things that I strongly encourage you to do is if you can't change it, just let it be. Focus on what you can influence and what you can change. If you notice some of the most successful people, whenever there's a challenge or something put in front of them, if they can't change it, they let it go. They're like, bro, why would I focus on something I can't change, right? When I can just focus on something that I can actually influence. And some people might not like what I'm about to say, right? And that's cool. And it's just, that's for instance why I personally don't get into sports. You know, I don't influence how far somebody throws a football, whether they touch down, whether I mean, there's so much things in life. I can't possibly care that much about what an athlete is doing because that's his life. I got to win in my life. I got to make my touchdowns, right? So what touchdowns can you focus on in your life, right? Because you're going to have some tackles, you're going to have some, sacks, and it's going to suck, right? So how can you start developing this mental muscle so that whenever a big problem arises, you know how to deal with it. So whenever for instance, somebody cuts you off, be like, that really upset me. Why am I upset? Because they cut me off and they should know how to drive better. Well, why don't they know how to drive better? I don't know. It seems like that's more of a problem with them than it is with me. It's not personal. They're just driving like they drive, and they didn't do it to me personally. They don't even know who I am. Let it go. Let it go. One of the things that I actually learned from Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, incredible book, by the way, highly recommend you either read it or listen to it. If you listen to it, he reads it to you, which is pretty dope because, as we know, Matthew McConaughey is a stud. It's pretty incredible. One of the things that he talks about is in Hollywood, he's like, you might get picked up in a limo and then you have to find a ride back home. It's not personal. It's just business. And you got to remember that. Do not take things personally. And that is so important to building mental toughness because, again, problems are just an inescapable part of life. And the thing is, the more resilient you can become, the farther you will go, right? We've all heard of the saying from the Rocky movie, it's not about how hard you can get hit or how hard you get hit. It's about how many times you can keep getting up. That is true in life. That is life, because life consists of like crushing it, wham, wow, that hurt really bad. I can either choose to stay down here or I can keep going. I can keep going. And I was listening to a talk today about this guy, this YouTuber. His name is Graham Stephan, and he covers finances. Incredible YouTube channel if you want to learn about investing, real estate, and just in general, an amazing place to get really good financial education. But he talked about, he's like, a lot of times in life, you get to a point to where, you really want to reach the top of the mountain. You want to reach the top of the mountain, but then you kind of look around, you're like, wow, this part of the mountain is still pretty sick. And I still have a dope view here. This is nice. I think I might just, chill here. I'm way higher than most people. I might as well just kind of hang out here. And what he said after that really rang like, I was like, holy cow, that's incredible. A lot of people get to a point in life to where they essentially get comfortable, right? And although comfort might be, I love my house, so really nice. What ends up happening in life is that you slowly, right? Rain starts to happen on the mountain, snow, weather starts changing, and then essentially you start slowly sliding back down in life, right? Slowly, and then you look 10 to 20 years later afterwards, and you look back and you're like, wait a second, I wasn't all the way down here like 20 years ago. What happened? You got complacent. That's what happened. And whenever I heard that, I was like, wow, that's one of those problems in life that you have to be able to acknowledge and see, and have mental toughness to have those really tough conversations with yourself that you don't like to have with yourself. Why am I not moving ahead in life? What could I be doing more of? Where is it that I'm slacking? Where have my friends and family members told me, you could really do a little bit better here? What are some things, the Chinese say that there's 3 faces, and the third face we never show to the world. Nobody else will ever see it but you. What are the conversations that you have with yourself that where you could be better, where you're not doing it? Only you know. I don't know. You will more than likely never express it to anybody else in the world, right? Because it's your third face. You never show that to anybody. It's only the internal conversation you have with yourself. That's what mental toughness is about, is to acknowledge where you're at and how can I be better. And one of the things that I learned from Hal Elrod is be content, be grateful for where you're at, but never content with where you're at. Because being grateful means I'm thankful for all of this, but how could I achieve more, right? Life is about continuously achieving more. And that's one of the things that Millionaire Habits book talked about. He's like, there will always be another deal to close. There will always be another race to run faster. There will always be another shot to make in a basketball game. There will always be more furniture to buy for your house. There will always be more food or more pets. There will always be something more. And I used to think of this and be like, oh, how draining. That's life, bro. Life is about continuously growing, becoming more, and how beautiful, because that way you don't get bored and you don't get complacent. One of the few things that I want to share with you guys to essentially develop extremely good mental toughness is I learned this from David Goggins' book, because I did this crazy challenge. I ran a lot of miles, broke my leg, still kept running. It was gnarly. It's not about me, right? But what I want to teach you here is how to essentially have a cookie jar for when things get tough. And he calls it the cookie jar because you essentially start to look back at things in your life where you were like, man, that was a really hard challenge, but I did it. Boom, that's a cookie. That's a mental cookie that you can psychologically eat. You're like, man, I remember that one time where everybody told me I couldn't do that one thing, and then I did it, and then it was incredible, right? So are we still here? Yeah, sorry, my wife.
You're good.
So always reach for that cookie jar, right? And what I want you to do right now, just take a quick 60 seconds and just write down 1 or 2 things that you have done before in your life where you were like, that was really challenging, but I made it happen. So go ahead, write a few things. I'm gonna hit the Tai Lopez. So think of a few things, right? And you were talking about ice a little bit ago, Damien. So what's cool is this bridge actually makes these really cool, ice balls. So this is the ice that it makes. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, this is how I made the fire with the ice.
It makes round whiskey ice balls.
That is awesome.
And then it also does this. If you knock on it, it turns on, and then it turns off.
But wait, I thought you couldn't make any money selling knives.
Yeah, no, man, I don't know. And so, well, yeah, I'm gonna kind of hit a Tai Lopez, right? Keep y'all interested while I'm moving around. But I mean, the thing is too, is like, I actually came from Mexico, right? And one of the first things to essentially learn, I'm an immigrant. I didn't speak English. I didn't speak the language at all. I had to essentially figure it out. And I remember just sitting in class being just like so like confused and not being able to talk and just being like, how do I like converse with these people? And that was one of the times where I just basically got to be introspective. And when you're in a position where you don't know how to converse with people, you feel uncomfortable. What I've always found is that whenever you feel uncomfortable, if you push past the discomfort, what ends up happening is that you become better, and you actually look back and you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that I could do that. And now that I have, I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, something to consider for sure. I mean, this is our master bath here. Pretty cool. So what I'm trying to allude to here, guys, is that there's been a lot of challenging parts to my life, as I'm sure yours. And one of the things that I'm realizing too, just with humans in general, we all have struggles. We all deal with problems. And here is something that I want you to not get caught into the trap of, and that's trying to make your problems seem like they're more problematic and make it a contest about, oh, well, bet you haven't experienced this, and you go into this whole minutia of details. And it's like, well, of course I haven't experienced that because that's your life experience, right? Don't get into those conversations because quite frankly, they don't do anything for you. They don't move the ball forward. They actually keep you stuck or they regress you, right? So the conversations that you could be having, right, are like, yeah, I one time experienced that, but how could I have done it differently? How could I have done it better? And you will notice that you will start to do that through different areas of your life, with your relationship, with your business, with anything really in general, right? And why is it important that you do that? Is because you will develop a mental fortitude that people will be like, man, I have no idea how you are able to do this, but it's pretty inspiring. And then people will be asking you for help. And why is it important for you to develop this is because, guys, again, life, there's problems all the time, right? And as you grow older, as you get real estate, as you become, more successful in life, there will be the problems. I remember talking to my mentor in Mexico, in Cancun, and one of the things that he said was like, Roger, and by the way, when I lived in Cancun, oh, it sounds so cool. I worked at a restaurant and I worked 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, and I was making $87 a week. So you're like, oh, that sounds so cool. No, that was terrible. Talk about mental toughness. And then you come and sell knives. You're like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, right. Sorry, just people are calling me. Why is it important? One of the things that he said to me is that, hey, Roger, right now you're dealing with like $100 problems, and then eventually you'll deal with $1,000 problems. And my son right now, he's dealing with multi-million-dollar problems. All problems are always problems, just the zeros change and just the depth of the problems change. And I never understood him. I was always like, what an asshole. Like, how could he say such a thing? He's just braggadocious, boom, boom, bam. And then, we're not millionaires yet. We haven't hit that mark yet, but I just now think to the conversation I had with him, and I'm like, wow, that is so true, right? That is so true. So it's important to always make sure that you're in a position where you can be mentally tough, right? Grow that mental muscle because, by the way, it's not always going to be perfect. I've broken down before, but I've always tried to look back and analyze, like, okay, well, crying doesn't fix it. Being angry doesn't fix it. Yelling it doesn't fix it. Bitching and complaining doesn't fix it. Okay, well, what fixes it? Well, thinking, analyzing, planning, move forward, and just move forward. Make a plan, move forward, make a plan, move forward, make a plan, move forward. And if you must, I've had therapists in the past, incredible. Why do I think therapists are incredible? Because it's like personal growth on steroids. You learn so much about yourself, and you can sit down with another human being that has a completely different point of view, that actually studied on how to help you. And you have all these blind spots you didn't even realize. And you're like, wow, I guess I wasn't thinking about things like that. Thanks for helping me out, right? So I hope you guys found this helpful. Mental toughness is one of the things that is going to really transfer to every single area of your life. And, always finish the day on a win. Ask yourself, how can I finish the day on a win? And I promise you, if you can finish almost every day or have the focus of finishing on a win, then the rest of your life, it's not going to be perfect all the time. Remember, life is never linear. It's never perfect. It's like this, just like entrepreneurship. But how can you end most days on a win, right? And one of the things that I would always do when I would go play basketball at the gym is I would not leave until I made a 3-pointer. That was it. It's like, okay, bro, I'm not leaving till I just like make a 3-pointer, because it reminds me, okay, I can do this. I can do it. I can do it. And start with little things and then build it up and scale on top of that. So I'm open to questions if there's any questions or anything, Damien. Hope you all found that helpful.
Yeah, we took a shit ton of notes. Thanks, Raj. That was great. Yeah, man, who's got a question or two, something that they'd like to get some perspective on?
Well, while somebody comes up with a question, I wanted to say thank you, Roger, for your time because that was incredible.
Oh, dude, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope it serves you.
Oh, it does.
Nice.
Anything you guys, Ethan, Colton, questions, Joseph?
You got
Got
Colton.
Go
one.
ahead, Colton.
Yeah. So, I heard you talk about how you actually went to a therapist, even though you weren't necessarily, or I'm guessing you weren't necessarily in a horrible bad state in place of in your life, but you still wanted to go to a therapist just to kind of find out things that about yourself that you maybe never saw, or blind spots and stuff like that. I've never actually heard of that before, and it's kind of interesting to hear that someone might want to go to someone that studies you and yourself to figure out things that maybe you never thought about. So when you did that, was that hard to choose to do that? Was that like, did that take a lot of money? Like, what was your kind of situation with that?
Yeah. So basically, like the first time I went to one was because I was having anxiety and panic attacks. So I kind of learned how to, develop all
Sure.
that and figure it out. But the second time was, well, I mean, it was expensive, right? It was $200 per session.
Okay.
So sorry, my wife is calling me, but why did I do that? Because I really just wanted to figure out about myself, and I wanted to learn, and one of the things that I always want to talk about, great question, is always go against the grain of what most people are saying. Most people will say things like, oh, then if you go to therapy, then you have like a psychological problem. That's not necessarily true, right? And the way I'd like to see it was like, what could I learn about myself? This person is an individual that went to school. The guy I went to had a PhD, so that's why he was $200 per session. This dude went to school for 12 years. He's been practicing for the last 28. He's met a lot of people, and there's probably something that he's seen in certain patterns, just like we see patterns in customers and friends, etc., that he could see within myself that I didn't even realize I had, right? Because we all have blind spots. And it was amazing, right? It was amazing. And I think what ends up happening with a lot of people is that therapy gets played as like this really bad thing, when in reality, it's like, dude, it's not a bad thing. It's actually beautiful because you learn so much about yourself. And it's really self-love for you and those around you, because boom, you learn something about yourself that you didn't know. And now you have essentially unlocked this new like level or skill within your mind that you didn't even know you had. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot. It was pretty cool. Like I remember him giving me an analogy about, he's like, well, and I don't know how we started talking about cars, but he's like, well, why would you want a red Mercedes instead of like a blue BMW? And I'm just like, what? And so it was just going into the fact of like how humans, we want things and nicer things, and why do we really want nice things, and do they really mean something, or is there like a part of us when we were younger that we didn't feel enough, so that we want to buy nice things to be able to prove to our younger selves and those around us that we are worth it, because reality, all we want is love. So sorry, that was a little psychiatric session there, but you get the point, right?
No, yeah, that's perfect. That was an awesome answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was your?
Any other questions? Hi, Kitty.
Oh, hello.
Any other questions for him?
Roger. What would you say
Yeah.
was your biggest takeaway from going to therapy?
Wow. So this is great. Really just understanding myself better. That was what it was. And one of the things, if you guys know the name Brandon Brown, he posted a thing on Instagram once, and it said, it's really hard to get mad or upset at people now whenever they lash out at you or they do something to you, because you understand it's a reflection of what's going on internally versus what's they want to do to you personally. And it's true. It's like once you start to understand yourself and psychology and other people, if somebody tries to hurt you, one of the things that is true in psychology, hurt people, right? So it's like, okay, why are you hurt, and why are you like expressing that towards me? It's like, what did I do, or what did I trigger from your childhood that you have to act like that way towards me? But that's a whole nother level of things we can go to. But reality is just learning that we're, none of us are perfect. We're all human, and we're essentially going day to day with incomplete information and analysis and biases of other people, and we're just doing our best to be, love each other and work with each other. That's what, right, life is essentially about. And I think it plays into mental toughness because being mentally tough means also being vulnerable with yourself and with those around you. And sometimes I used to be the guy that was like always a macho man and never vulnerable. And the moment I actually expressed vulnerability was the moment that it was like, wow, this feels so freeing, right? This is great. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. Roger, what would you say is, you said being vulnerable with yourself. What do you mean by being vulnerable with yourself?
So like if you suck at something, just being like, bro, I suck at that, it's like, okay, like why am I not doing better? It's like quite frankly, it's because you're being lazy as hell. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true, right? And like one of the things that I remember reading from David Goggins's book that I was just like astonished because he was like 300 pounds. He's like, dude, honestly, it took a lot of balls, but I went up to the mirror and I told myself, you're a fat piece of, expletive, right? And so I was like, wow. And he said that was the moment that I was able to be true with myself. And that's when things started to change, right? So that's essentially being vulnerable with myself, realizing, well, how could I be doing better? Why am I not doing better? Well, quite frankly, because you're not trying hard enough, Roger. And it's like, well, okay, cool. How can I do better? How can I get better? How can I improve? Right?
It's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
We do have another question here.
Sure.
Anybody else? Any other questions they'd like to throw Roger's way?
Right here. So
Go ahead.
this one's more like in line with just when you're having like a bad day of sales. What are some
Sure.
mantras that you tell yourself to kind of keep yourself motivated and going forward?
Yeah, great. So some of the things that I say to myself, it only takes one, right? And I heard this from John Wasserman. I think Damien knows who John Wasserman is. He actually posted this on Facebook years ago. And sometimes when you have an interview or you go to an appointment or something, it just doesn't go the way you want it to, or you see that it potentially could not be the appointment or the interview you want to be. And one of the things that he said is, don't play to the size of your audience, perform to the size of your heart. And I was like, damn, that is wow. And it's like, what does your heart say? How does your heart want to express yourself in front of this one person that's in this interview, or this one person that looks completely unqualified? How does your heart want to perform? Although your mind and all of the other pre-qualifications that you've already made up in your mind are telling you don't do that, how can you like get in tune to what your heart is saying, right? And that really helps, right? Because you might have no sale, but one of the things I learned from Chris Voss is the last impression is a lasting impression. Even though they might have not bought something then, if you leave a good impression on them, perhaps later down the road, they might reach out to you because you didn't treat them like every other salesperson does. You left them feeling great. And that's something that is very challenging that I struggle with a lot. But I always ask myself, well, how could I have done that better? Right? So those are some of those mantras that I ask myself. And, how can I just, be more human with people? If I'm having a bad sales day, I'm like, bro, that was just one day. There's 364 other days, whatever. How do I end it on a win? I go for a walk, listen to an audiobook, go to the gym, end it in a way where I feel like good about myself. Right. And that's different for everybody. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Beautiful.
Anybody else? Any other questions here before we let Roger finish up his evening here? Obviously, dude, I appreciate your time so much.
Of course.
Anybody else want to throw something down?
I'm happy to help.
I noticed you talked about vulnerability. So I was like wondering, have you read The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown?
No, I haven't. No, but I hear really great things about Brene Brown. So sounds like a book I need to check out.
Yeah, she kind of is like the experts of studying vulnerability. Like she's like the expertise of vulnerability.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
Just want to say thank you, Roger. Appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Thanks, man. Have a good rest of your day. Say hi to Chelsea.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
That was awesome.
All right.